They handed me the gleaming glass trophy with one hand, and with the other, they subtly slipped the termination letter into my palm. That moment, bathed in the blinding stage lights and the deafening, manufactured applause within the grand ballroom of the Starlight Convention Center, the crown jewel of Silverleaf City's burgeoning tech district, wasn't organic. It was orchestrated, precise in every detail, and had I been paying closer attention, perhaps I would have seen it coming. But that's the thing about betrayal. It rarely screams. It whispers. Just 2 weeks prior, I stood alone in the hushed corridor outside the executive meeting room. It was a bleak Thursday afternoon in late November of 2028, and I'd arrived a full 15 minutes early for the critical annual budget review. I decided to wait, giving the previous occupants their space. I hadn't intended to eavesdrop. It wasn't in my nature. Yet, the door wasn't quite closed. A sliver of light and voices. Inside, I immediately recognized them. Benedict Thorne, our brilliant CEO, and Serafina Dubois, our new, impeccably sharp director of operations. Their voices, usually so controlled, carried a chilling undertone that stopped me in my tracks. She served her purpose, Serafina. Benedict's voice, sharp and devoid of its usual polished charm, pierced the silence. The Viridian deal, all $798 million of it, is sealed. We don't need her expertise anymore. She's become too much of a single point of failure. The disdain in his voice was a physical blow, worse than any public reprimand. Serafina's response was a low, conspiratorial purr. Indeed, Benedict, she's grown indispensable, almost dangerously so. To have a single individual hold the keys to such a critical client relationship, not to mention the core intellectual property. It's a vulnerability we simply cannot tolerate, especially now. The upcoming gala, where we celebrate our innovators, provides the perfect cover. A grand public accolade, followed by a swift, quiet transition. My breath caught. Her. The words slammed into me, echoing the chilling fear that had, until then, been an unarticulated whisper in the back of my mind. It couldn't be me, Aurora Hayes, the architect of our massive Viridian Corporations deal. The one they had lauded as their visionary. The one who had breathed life back into stagnant projects. Yet, the icy tendrils of dread, once a faint shiver, now coiled tightly around my heart, squeezing the air from my lungs. The victory champagne from the morning's celebratory board meeting turned bitter on my tongue. And Arthur, Benedict continued, a new layer of cunning in his tone, is far too loyal to her. We need to ensure he doesn't become an issue. A small promotion, a substantial bonus perhaps. Something to keep him preoccupied and aligned with our vision. Arthur Finch. My trusted colleague, my sounding board, my sole genuine ally in this gleaming, impersonal fortress. The realization landed with the force of a physical blow. They were not only targeting me, but anyone connected to me. The intricate web of corporate loyalty, I now saw, was nothing more than a carefully constructed facade, easily torn down when it no longer served their purpose. I pressed my ear closer, my body rigid with a mixture of shock and burgeoning fury. The primal urge to burst into that office, to confront them, to scream my indignation, surged through me. But years of navigating the treacherous undercurrents of corporate power had taught me the value of strategic silence. Never show your hand until you're holding the winning cards. The termination papers are drafted then? Benedict's voice was casual, disturbingly so, as if discussing a trivial administrative matter. Signed, sealed, and ready for deployment, Serafina confirmed, a note of cruel satisfaction lacing her words. A clean, decisive break. By the time Viridian Corp., even begins to question her absence, the transition will be irreversible. Their dependence on her platform, as we meticulously engineered it, will become their dependence on us. Their loss of her will be our gain of their unwavering loyalty. A weakness they engineered. The phrase hammered home the cold, calculated treachery. They hadn't merely used me. They had deliberately, systematically created a situation where I was indispensable, only to pull the rug out from under me at the peak of my success. It wasn't just about losing a job. It was about the brutal theft of intellectual property, the cynical exploitation of trust, and the crushing weight of betrayal. Standing there on that stage, under the hot glare of the spotlight, the golden trophy suddenly felt heavy, an oppressive weight in my hands. The applause continued, a deafening roar celebrating a future that was, for me, already dead. But in that very moment, a different kind of resolve sparked within me. A cold, hard fire burning away the shock and leaving behind a singular, unwavering purpose. They thought they were discarding a tool, but they had just ignited a firestorm. I would ensure their meticulously constructed empire, built on the uncredited efforts of others, would not merely crumble, but would spectacularly collapse, sending shockwaves through every corner they now believed they controlled. The revelation in Benedict's office was a venomous seed, planted deep within me. It festered, morphing from disbelief into a cold, calculated fury as the days bled into weeks. The initial shock had given way to an almost obsessive vigilance. Every meeting, every casual conversation, every email now felt like a coded message, a piece of a larger, sinister puzzle. The once vibrant atmosphere of Ethelberg Dynamics, a place I had called home for 7 dedicated years, now felt like a gilded cage. My first instinct, after the initial wave of nausea passed, was to dissect the conversation I'd overheard. Benedict and Serafina, the power duo, had spoken with chilling precision. "Too indispensable," Serafina had purred. "A single point of failure," Benedict had echoed. It wasn't a sudden, impulsive decision. This had been meticulously planned, a corporate assassination executed with surgical detachment. The irony of it burned. My success, my unwavering dedication to the very platform that had netted them $798 million, was now my gravestone. The most unnerving part was how subtly things began to shift. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash, powerless to stop it. Previously, I was at the core of every major strategic discussion, my insights eagerly sought. Now, invitations to critical project briefings, especially those concerning the Viridian Corp rollout, mysteriously vanished from my calendar. My once bustling inbox, constantly pinging with urgent requests for my input, grew eerily quiet. When I did speak up in team meetings, my suggestions, once met with nods of approval, were now greeted with polite dismissal, or worse, ignored altogether. Arthur, my only steadfast ally, would sometimes catch my eye, a shared look of confusion passing between us, but even he seemed hesitant to challenge the unspoken currents. One afternoon, I found myself inexplicably locked out of a critical server room. The access logs, when I finally managed to pull them, showed my clearance had been temporarily revoked by a junior IT assistant, a nervous 22-year-old named Liam, who stammered apologies and blamed a system glitch. A system glitch, I thought, or a test. They were testing the waters, slowly eroding my access, making me irrelevant before they pushed me out. The casual lunches with Arthur became less frequent, replaced by hurried conversations in hushed tones near the break room. He was still himself, loyal, kind, and brilliant, but a new wariness shadowed his eyes. "Aurora," he'd whisper one day, glancing nervously over his shoulder. Are you noticing anything different? Things are just off. I wanted to confide in him, to share the chilling truth of what I'd heard. But the thought of implicating him, of turning him into another casualty in their calculated game, stopped me. He had a family, a young daughter, barely 3 years old. I couldn't risk his future. The isolation became palpable. It wasn't just physical distance. It was a deliberate, psychological wall being built around me. Colleagues who once sought my advice now averted their gaze. The genuine smiles were replaced by strained courtesies. I was still physically present, still putting in 60-hour weeks to ensure the Viridian Corp annulls. Platform was flawless, but I felt like a phantom, a ghost, haunting the very halls where I had once thrived. But this insidious campaign of marginalization wasn't breaking me. It was hardening me. With every sidelong glance, every excluded meeting, every subtle slight, my resolve deepened. They wanted to diminish me, to make me a non-entity. They thought they were stripping me of my power, but they were inadvertently gifting me a new kind of strength, the clarity of a person with nothing left to lose. My mind, always analytical, began to work overtime, not on improving Ethelberg's existing systems, but on a silent, secret project of my own. A project that would ensure their grand plan, their perfect transition, would unravel in the most spectacular way imaginable. They had underestimated me, and that would be their gravest mistake. The corporate noose tightened with each passing day. The exclusion was no longer subtle. It was blatant, a stark reminder of my diminishing value in their eyes. But what they didn't know was that their deliberate marginalization was actually a gift. It freed me. No longer bogged down by endless, increasingly pointless meetings or trivial administrative tasks, my mind was now singularly focused on survival, and more importantly, retaliation. The foundation of Project Chimera began to take shape in the quiet hum of my personal server, hidden deep within my secure home lab, a space far removed from the prying eyes of Ethelberg dynamics. I spent countless sleepless nights, fueled by strong, bitter coffee and an even stronger sense of injustice. My apartment, a modest 2-bedroom unit on the outskirts of Silverleaf City, transformed into a war room. Every line of code, every algorithm, every data structure was meticulously crafted. Project Chimera wasn't just a platform. It was an evolution, a weapon. It was everything the original Ethelberg system should have been, stripped of its vulnerabilities and infused with new, groundbreaking capabilities. I meticulously integrated advanced AI-driven analytics, predictive modeling far beyond what Ethelberg possessed, and crucially, a robust, self-defending security protocol designed to detect and report unauthorized access. It was built with an understanding of Ethelberg's internal architecture, the one I had designed, but with an ironclad failsafe. The Viridian Corpus deal, the one that had unknowingly signed my death warrant, became my blueprint. I knew every intricate detail of their data requirements, their operational workflows, their deepest pain points. Chimera was tailored to Viridian's needs, not just meeting them, but anticipating them, offering solutions they hadn't even conceived of yet. This wasn't a copy. It was a superior parallel universe version. My interactions with Arthur became rarer, almost clandestine. We'd exchange quick, furtive glances in the cafeteria, brief, clipped sentences in deserted corridors. He still didn't know the full truth, but his unease was palpable. One chilly December morning, he cornered me by the old coffee machine, his voice barely a whisper. "Aurora, they're talking about restructuring the entire Viridian team. Your team." His eyes, usually bright with enthusiasm, were clouded with worry. "You're still leading the integration, right?" I offered him a weak smile, a lie of omission. "Of course, Arthur. Just a lot of moving parts. The lie tasted like ash, but I had to protect him. His genuine concern only fueled my resolve. The thought of securing a new role, of simply walking away, had crossed my mind. But the sheer arrogance of Benedict and Serafina, their cold, calculated dismissal, ignited a fire that wouldn't be quenched by a mere resignation. This wasn't about finding another job. It was about justice. It was about proving that innovation, true innovation, could not be owned, bought, or discarded at will. It was about reclaiming my intellectual soul. I knew I needed leverage, something more potent than just a superior product. A way to bind Viridian Corp. To me, not to Ethelberg. I spent days poring over the fine print of the Viridian contract, a document I had drafted myself, meticulously reviewing every clause, every subsection. It was a tedious, mind-numbing task, but deep within the labyrinthine legal jargon, hidden like a tiny diamond in a mountain of coal, was it a specific provision, so obscure, so seemingly innocuous, that no one but I would have understood its true potential. Clause 17b. It stated, in dense legalese, that the continued licensing of the platform's proprietary algorithms for advanced data interpretation was contingent upon the original architect's ongoing oversight and direct involvement. If the architect were to be removed or otherwise incapacitated, the licensing agreement could be subject to immediate review, potentially leading to termination. It was a tiny, brilliant, self-destruct mechanism I had subtly woven into the fabric of the agreement years ago. A safety net I'd designed for future unforeseen circumstances, never imagining it would be needed to protect myself from my own company. The cold dread from that Tuesday evening 3 weeks prior hadn't dissipated. Instead, it had sharpened into a razor-edged focus. They were planning to present me with the trophy, then with the axe, but they hadn't accounted for Project Chimera, and they certainly hadn't accounted for Clause 17b. The game had changed, and I, Aurora Hayes, was ready to play my winning hand. The weight of the knowledge I carried was both a burden and a strange, potent fuel. Each morning, I walked into the gleaming lobby of Ethelberg Dynamics, past the smiling, unsuspecting faces, feeling like a spy in my own home. My days were a careful ballet of deception, appearing engaged, contributing just enough, while secretly channeling every ounce of my true energy into Project Chimera. The clock was ticking, counting down to the gala, and with it, my predetermined professional demise. My top priority became the meticulous refinement of Chimera. It wasn't enough for it to be better. It had to be undeniably, overwhelmingly superior. I spent my lunch breaks and late nights locked away, not at my corporate desk, but in the quiet solitude of a borrowed co-working space on Silverleaf City's industrial fringe, away from any prying Ethelberg network sniffers. My personal laptop, a customized rig I'd built years ago, hummed with the intense calculations, its fans whining like tiny, overworked spirits. I tested and retested, pushing the boundaries of its AI, ensuring its data analysis was not just accurate, but predictive, almost intuitive. This wasn't just code. It was a living, breathing entity, anticipating the needs of clients like Viridian Corp. Before they even knew them themselves. The subtle acts of sabotage against me continued, escalating from mere slights to direct obstruction. My access to the primary Ethelberg network for the Viridian project was periodically throttled, making even simple file transfers excruciatingly slow. Critical design specifications for upcoming phases of the Viridian integration, usually routed directly to me, were instead sent to junior developers, causing delays and confusion. I'd receive urgent calls from Viridian project managers, bewildered by these bottlenecks, and I'd offer vague reassurances, blaming server maintenance or cross-departmental communication issues. My teeth ground together with suppressed rage, but I kept my voice calm, professional. The only bright spot, a flickering candle in the encroaching darkness, was my continued covert communication with Arthur. He was growing more agitated, his concern for me increasingly evident. One afternoon, he found me by the chilled water dispenser, his voice hushed. "Aurora, something's seriously wrong. Benedict just reassigned our entire dev team for the Viridian platform to Seraphina's oversight, and he subtly hinted that my loyalty was being noted." "What's going on?" His eyes pleaded for answers. My heart ached to tell him everything, to reveal the depths of the treachery. But I couldn't, not yet, not while he was still within Ethelberg's grasp. "Arthur, I appreciate your concern," I said, forcing a casual shrug. "It's just corporate politics. You know how it is. Seraphina probably wants to put her stamp on things. And as for loyalty, well, that's just Benedict being Benedict." The lie tasted like ash, but his safety was paramount. He looked unconvinced, but let it go, a heavy sigh escaping him. I knew then that his support, however subtle, was unwavering. Simultaneously, I began my quiet preparations for life beyond Ethelberg. I updated my resume, not with my Ethelberg achievements, but with my secret advancements made outside their purview. I reactivated dormant professional contacts, subtle inquiries, laying groundwork that wouldn't raise suspicions. The thought of reaching out to a competitor, a genuine rival, began to crystallize in my mind. It was a risky move, fraught with legal implications, but if Ethelberg was playing dirty, so would I. My eyes fell on a news article detailing the rapid ascent of Zenith Solutions, a nimble, innovative tech consultancy based in Northern Point District. Barely 1-year-old, but making waves. Their CTO, a brilliant mind named Victoria Sterling, had recently delivered a keynote on disruptive innovation that resonated deeply with me. She was a known champion of intellectual property rights, a stark contrast to Ethelberg's predatory practices. The idea sparked a dangerous, thrilling thought. What if Chimera found a home there? What if my revenge could also be my renaissance? The countdown to the gala continued, a relentless march towards my public humiliation. But each day, as they stripped away my responsibilities and isolated me further, I was quietly building something more powerful, more profound. They thought they were dismantling my career. They were, in fact, laying the groundwork for its spectacular rebirth. The game was on, and I intended to win. The closer the gala loomed, the more intense the pressure became. Not from Ethelberg, whose attempts to subtly sideline me were now almost comical in their transparency, but from within myself. Project Chimera was a marvel, far surpassing anything Ethelberg had in its arsenal. But a brilliant piece of technology was useless without a strategy to deploy it. My mind raced, constantly replaying conversations, dissecting past deals, searching for the perfect opening. And then, like a lightning bolt, the memory of Clause 17B struck me, a forgotten safety net I'd woven years ago into the very fabric of the Viridian Corp contract. It had been a late night, nearly midnight on a chilly October evening, over a year ago. I was deep in the final drafts of the Viridian Agreement, a behemoth of a document stretching over 73 pages. I'd included a tiny, almost microscopic provision in the intellectual property licensing section. It was so obscure, so nestled within dense legal jargon, that no one but me, its original architect, would ever grasp its true implications. Clause 17B stated that the continued, uninterrupted licensing of the platform's proprietary Oracle Nexus algorithms for advanced data interpretation was contingent upon the original architect's ongoing oversight and direct involvement. If the architect were to be removed or otherwise incapacitated, the licensing agreement would be subject to immediate review, potentially leading to its termination within a mere 48 hours. It was a small, brilliant, self-destruct mechanism, a failsafe I'd originally designed to protect Ethelberg from an external hostile takeover, never once imagining it would be my shield against the company itself. Now, it was my ace in the hole. The next challenge was how to activate it to ensure Viridian Corp understood the implications of Clause 17B the moment my termination was announced. They were a massive, bureaucratic entity, not known for quick responses. I needed a direct, undeniable channel. That's where Victoria Sterling and Zenith Solutions came in. I spent the better part of a Wednesday tucked away in a quiet corner of the Silverleaf City Public Library's digital archives, researching Victoria. She was a force of nature, a renowned technologist with a reputation for integrity and a knack for spotting groundbreaking talent. Zenith Solutions, her brainchild, was a rising star, known for its agile approach and commitment to ethical innovation. They were Ethelberg's antithesis. Drafting the email to Victoria was an exercise in strategic precision. I couldn't reveal everything, not yet, but I needed to pique her interest, to hint at a revolutionary technology and a looming corporate scandal without crossing any legal lines that Ethelberg could immediately exploit. I talked about disruptive analytical frameworks and unforeseen market opportunities. I mentioned realigning strategic partnerships and the need for a truly independent technological home. I didn't attach any files or use any company resources. This was purely off the grid, a digital message in a bottle. I sent it from an encrypted, untraceable personal account, then wiped every trace of its existence from my temporary workstation. A response arrived less than an hour later. It was brief, to the point, and intriguing. Ms. Hayes, your message is compelling. I am always open to exploring genuine innovation. Please propose a secure, neutral meeting location and time. Discretion is paramount. Victoria Sterling was even sharper than her reputation suggested. A wave of relief, mixed with a thrill of anticipation, washed over me. The game was truly on. My carefully laid plans were finally beginning to converge. They had prepared their grand public spectacle, their awards, their quiet termination. But they had underestimated the depth of my foresight and the resilience of a woman scorned. The stage was set, the players were in position, and the silent gears of my retaliation were grinding into motion. The meeting with Victoria Sterling was set for a discreet cafe nestled in a quiet, less trafficked corner of Silverleaf City, far from Ethelberg's usual haunts. It was a small, unassuming place with strong coffee and even stronger anonymity. I arrived precisely on time, dressed inconspicuously, feeling like a character in a spy novel. Victoria was already there, a woman in her early 40s, with keen, intelligent eyes and a quiet intensity that immediately put me at ease. She wasn't one for small talk. Ms. Hayes, she began, her voice calm and direct. Your email was intriguing. What exactly are you offering? I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment I would lay my cards on the table, risking everything. Ms. Sterling, I replied, meeting her gaze. I'm offering the future of data analytics, an unparalleled leap in predictive intelligence, and frankly, a chance to outmaneuver Ethelberg dynamics on every front. I then proceeded to explain Project Chimera, not in abstract terms, but with concrete examples of its capabilities, hinting at its true power without revealing the proprietary code. I described how it could process and interpret complex datasets with unprecedented speed and accuracy, predicting market trends and consumer behavior with startling precision, far exceeding the current industry benchmarks, including Ethelberg's own aging system. I spoke of its adaptability, its scalability, and its self-learning algorithms. Victoria listened, her expression unreadable, occasionally nodding, sometimes scribbling a note on a small digital tablet. When I finished, a silence stretched between us, broken only by the gentle hum of the cafe's espresso machine. "Impressive," she finally said, her voice betraying a hint of genuine awe. "But why us? And why now?" "Ethelberg is celebrating the Viridian Corpness deal, largely due to your work, if industry rumors are to be believed." This was the delicate part. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a near whisper. "Because Ethelberg intends to discard me, Miss Sterling, immediately after they parade me as their Innovator of the Year at the upcoming gala. They view my indispensability as a liability. They believe they can simply take my work, my intellectual property, and continue without me." Her eyes narrowed. "And you have proof of this?" "More than proof," I said, a grim smile touching my lips. "I have leverage. In the Viridian Corp contract, specifically Clause 17b, there is a provision. It states that the continued licensing of the platform's core Oracle Nexus algorithms is contingent upon the original architect's ongoing oversight and direct involvement. If I am removed, Viridian Corpinders can terminate the agreement within 48 hours. Victoria's composure, usually ironclad, visibly faltered. A sharp intake of breath. "You built a kill switch into your own contract?" "Not a kill switch," I corrected. "A safeguard. Against unforeseen circumstances. I never imagined it would be used against the very company I built it for." I explained how Chimera was a standalone, superior version, not reliant on Ethelberg's infrastructure, designed to seamlessly integrate with Viridian Corp's systems, and how the moment I was out, their license would become null. Ethelberg would be left with a multi-million-dollar contract they couldn't fulfill, and a public relations nightmare. "And you want Zenith Solutions to be the beneficiary of this upheaval?" she asked, her gaze piercing. "I want Zenith Solutions to be the new home for Chimera," I clarified. "I want to work with a company that values innovation and talent, not just exploits it. And I want to ensure that Ethelberg's treachery costs them everything they thought they had gained." She sat back, a contemplative look on her face. "This is a monumental risk, Ms. Hayes, for both of us. But the potential is staggering." She paused, then extended her hand across the table. "Welcome aboard, Aurora. Let's show Ethelberg what happens when you try to extinguish a star." The handshake was firm, sealing a pact that would redraw the landscape of the tech industry. As I left the cafe, the world outside felt different. The ordinary streets of Silverleaf City, the bustling commuters, the distant hum of traffic, they were all part of a larger stage. The unseen strings were now in motion, and Ethelberg Dynamics, completely unaware, was about to dance to my tune. The gala night arrived, a shimmering spectacle of false camaraderie and manufactured smiles held, fittingly, in the opulent grand ballroom. Every detail, from the gleaming crystal chandeliers to the perfectly chilled flutes of sparkling cider, screamed Ethelberg's success. Benedict Thorne, beaming beside Serafina Dubois, worked the room like a seasoned politician, accepting congratulations for the Viridian Corps deal, a triumph he fully intended to claim as his own. I moved through the crowd, a phantom among the celebrants, a quiet observer of the charade. My mind, however, was miles away, orchestrating the final, intricate steps of my plan. I'd set a precise timeline. The moment I was handed that glass trophy, and simultaneously the termination letter, the gears of my meticulously constructed counterattack would begin to turn. The irony was palpable. They were setting the stage for their downfall, and I was the reluctant star of the show. I had spent the past few days, since my meeting with Victoria, refining the deployment of Project Chimera. It wasn't just about the code anymore. It was about the perfect delivery. I'd encoded a series of automated triggers within Chimera's framework. The moment my Ethelberg credentials were officially revoked, Chimera would spring to life. Its first action would be to automatically send a comprehensive, time-stamped report detailing Ethelberg's breach of Clause 17B to 3 key recipients: the legal department of Viridian Corp., the relevant oversight committee at the Federal Data Integrity Board, and a select group of influential tech journalists I had discreetly cultivated contacts with over the years. These journalists, known for their investigative prowess, would ensure the story gained immediate, widespread traction. The second, even more critical function of Chimera was its self-preservation protocol. Should any Ethelberg engineer attempt to reverse engineer my original platform after my departure, a certainty, knowing their desperate nature, Chimera would detect the unauthorized access. Its self-defense mechanism would then activate not by destroying data, but by subtly altering it, rendering it useless for their purposes, and simultaneously flagging the attempts as further breaches of intellectual property, sending another cascade of alerts. It was a digital tripwire, designed to ensnare them in their own web of deceit. My phone, a burner device I'd acquired weeks ago, buzzed in my pocket. A text from Victoria Sterling. All systems green on our end. Standing by. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched my lips. Zenith Solutions was ready to integrate Chimera the moment Ethelberg stumbled. Arthur approached me then, a strained smile on his face, a glass of sparkling cider in his hand. Aurora, there you are, trying to avoid the limelight before your big moment? His attempt at humor fell flat, his eyes betraying genuine worry. Listen, I overheard Serafina talking to Benedict earlier. They seemed unusually gleeful about your award. Just be careful, okay? Something feels off. My heart ached for him. He was a good man, caught in a corporate viper's nest. I simply nodded, squeezing his arm gently. Always careful, Arthur. Thanks. I couldn't tell him. Not now. Not yet. His ignorance was his best defense. Then, Benedict Thorne himself took the stage, his booming voice filling the room. He spoke of Ethelberg's vision, its triumphs, and then, with a flourish, announced my name. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for our innovator of the year, the brilliant mind behind our groundbreaking Viridian Corp. Platform, a true visionary whose dedication has brought us to new heights, Aurora Hayes. The applause swelled. I walked towards the stage, every step a deliberate act of defiance. The bright lights, the adoring faces, the heavy glass trophy. It all felt surreal. This was their crowning moment, their perceived victory. But they were merely pulling the string that would unravel their entire empire. I took the trophy with my right hand, feeling its cold, smooth surface. And then, just as I'd anticipated, a slender, ivory envelope, crisp and heavy with my fate, was subtly pressed into my left. The betrayal was complete. My speech, meticulously crafted weeks ago, was a masterclass in veiled contempt. I held the heavy glass trophy aloft with one hand, the termination letter clutched out of sight in the other. The warmth of the spotlight was a stark contrast to the glacial chill in my gut. Thank you, I began, my voice clear and steady, amplified for the entire ballroom to hear. I stand here tonight, truly humbled, yet acutely aware that innovation, true progress, is never the work of one individual. It is the culmination of countless hours, relentless dedication, and the brilliant minds who dare to challenge the status quo. I paused, my eyes sweeping across the sea of faces, lingering for a moment on Benedict and Serafina in the front row. Their smiles, fixed and triumphant, held not a hint of suspicion. They believed they had won. At Ethelberg Dynamics, I continued, we speak of ownership, of building something truly transformative. And tonight, As I look back on the journey, on the genesis of the Oracle Nexus platform that secured the Viridian Corp non deal, I realize the profound truth in that statement. It's not just about building code. It's about owning your vision, owning your intellectual property, and ensuring that your creations serve the purpose they were intended for. My words hung in the air, seemingly innocuous, yet each one a loaded bullet aimed squarely at their deceptive hearts. I spoke of the passion that fuels groundbreaking work, of the integrity required to uphold true innovation, every phrase a subtle indictment of their betrayal. As I concluded, the applause erupted once more, louder this time, a crescendo of unwitting celebration for their own impending downfall. I stepped down from the podium, making my way through the throng of well-wishers. Each handshake felt like a final goodbye, each congratulatory remark a hollow echo. Then, as if on cue, Serafina Dubois materialized beside me. Her smile was still plastered on, but her eyes held a chilling glint of satisfaction. "Aurora, truly magnificent," she purred, her voice low enough for only me to hear. "Such a moving speech." And then her hand brushed mine, subtly, deliberately. "This is for you, official documentation." Her fingers pressed the ivory envelope more firmly into my grip. There it was, the moment they had choreographed, the final public act of my dismissal. The sheer audacity of it was almost admirable. "Thank you, Serafina," I replied, my voice unwavering, my eyes meeting hers. "I appreciate the prompt delivery." My own hidden meaning hung heavy in the air between us. Her brow furrowed almost imperceptibly, a flicker of something akin to confusion crossing her face before she quickly recomposed herself. She walked away, her back straight, confident in her victory. I glanced down at the envelope, its pristine white a stark contrast to the chaos brewing within me. Official notification of employment termination. The words swam before my eyes, cold and clinical. I wanted to laugh, a bitter, hysterical laugh. They thought they had control. They thought this was the end. But it was only the beginning. As soon as Serafina was out of sight, I found a secluded corner near one of the grand velvet curtains. My fingers flew across my burner phone's screen, typing a single pre-programmed command. "Activate Omega Protocol." In that instant, across the city, my hidden server for Project Chimera hummed to life. The automated triggers I had painstakingly designed for days were now live, a cascading series of events initiated. The first alert, a meticulously detailed report on Ethelberg's breach of Clause 17B of the Viridian Corporate's contract, was instantaneously dispatched. It flooded the inbox of Viridian's lead counsel, then replicated itself to the Federal Data Integrity Board, and finally landed simultaneously in the inboxes of 3 prominent tech journalists I had carefully selected. Each email contained irrefutable evidence, time-stamped logs, and a clear explanation of how my removal nullified the critical software license. My mission was done. My part in their charade was complete. With a sense of calm defiance, I slipped the termination letter into my clutch, walked past the oblivious attendees, and exited the ballroom. The cool night air of Silverleaf City hit me, a refreshing balm after the suffocating atmosphere of the gala. I was free. And Ethelberg Dynamics, unknowingly, had just signed its own death warrant. The quiet hum of my self-driving shuttle was the only sound as I sped away from the glittering facade of the Starlight Convention Center. The digital clock on the dash read 10:47 p.m. The city lights of Silverleaf City blurred past, a stark contrast to the chaotic implosion I knew was about to begin back at Ethelberg. I pulled out my burner phone, the one I used only for Project Chimera's activation, and scrolled through the initial reports. The first confirmations were already trickling in. The legal department at Viridian Corporation had received the Clause 17B notification. My strategically cultivated journalist contacts had acknowledged receipt of the detailed dossier. The Federal Data Integrity Board's automated reply confirmed the filing. The digital dominoes were falling, precisely as I'd intended. I pictured Benedict and Serafina, likely still basking in the glow of the gala, unaware that the foundation of their empire was crumbling. They'd probably spent the last hour congratulating themselves, perhaps even discussing the smooth transition of my departure. The thought brought a grim satisfaction. My phone vibrated again, a call from an unfamiliar number. I hesitated, then answered. It was Victoria Sterling. Her voice, usually calm, held a note of restrained excitement. "Aurora? It's Victoria. We're seeing some interesting activity. Viridian Corp's legal team just pinged us, very urgently. They're asking about alternative platform providers, specifically mentioning Oracle Nexus, and they seem rather agitated about a Clause 17b they apparently overlooked." A genuine smile finally touched my lips. "Excellent, Victoria. The gears are turning." "Indeed," she chuckled, a rare sound. "We're preparing our proposal for them now, integrating Chimera's capabilities with their existing infrastructure seamlessly." "Your planning was meticulous. You even thought of the specific data migration protocols they use." "Always," I replied, the word imbued with years of underappreciated dedication. Ethelberg thought they owned my mind. They merely fueled it. The real chaos, however, began to unfold the next morning. My personal comms network, usually quiet, erupted. News alerts, breaking headlines, all painting a grim picture for Ethelberg Dynamics. "Ethelberg Dynamics faces imminent contract termination with Viridian Corp over licensing dispute," blared one. Another, even more damning, read, "Allegations of intellectual property misappropriation surface as Ethelberg's stock plummets." The stock market reacted with brutal efficiency. Ethelberg's shares, which had soared to an all-time high just yesterday, were now in freefall, plummeting by over 30% in the first hour of trading. Investors, spooked by the sudden news and the threat of losing their largest client, began a frantic sell-off. The carefully constructed image of corporate stability was shattered. I could almost hear the frantic shouting in Benedict's office, the panic in Serafina's voice. They would be trying to contain the damage, to understand what had gone so spectacularly wrong. They would be scrambling to figure out how their seemingly perfect plan had backfired with such devastating precision. Their IT teams would be desperately trying to access the Oracle Nexus code, trying to transfer it, to replicate it, to prove they still had control. But that's where Chimera's true genius came into play. The moment Ethelberg's servers registered the unauthorized attempts to access and copy my core platform's algorithms, Chimera's self-defense protocol activated. It didn't crash their systems. It subtly corrupted the data, feeding them distorted, useless information, making their attempts at replication fruitless. Simultaneously, it sent out further automated alerts to the Federal Data Integrity Board, documenting each and every attempt at illicit access as a continued breach of intellectual property. The irony was exquisite. The more they tried to salvage my platform, the deeper they dug their own grave. Within 24 hours, Viridian Corp publicly announced the termination of their $798 million contract with Ethelberg Dynamics, citing irreconcilable licensing breaches and a loss of faith in Ethelberg's operational integrity. The news was a death knell. The company's stock crashed further, losing nearly 60% of its value by midday. Analysts called it a catastrophic collapse, a corporate suicide. I watched it all unfold from the quiet anonymity of my small apartment, a grim satisfaction settling over me. They had wanted to discard me, to steal my work, and claim it as their own. But I had ensured that my departure would leave a gaping, irreparable void. The whispers of betrayal had turned into a roar that shook Ethelberg to its very core. The collapse of Ethelberg Dynamics was not merely swift, it was a devastating spectacle. Within a single week, what had once been a seemingly impregnable titan of the tech industry was reduced to a cautionary tale, its name irrevocably stained with corporate scandal and the brazen theft of intellectual property. The news channels, fed relentlessly by the evidence Project Chimera had automatically disseminated, broadcasted the story of its downfall with grim satisfaction. Every major financial outlet, from Global Tech Digest to Innovation Journal, dissected Ethelberg's demise, citing unprecedented licensing breaches, ethical failures, and catastrophic mismanagement. Benedict Thorne and Serafina Dubois, once the darlings of the tech world, became immediate pariahs. Their meticulously sculpted reputations crumbled under the weight of public condemnation, and legal inquiries from the Federal Data Integrity Board began, signaling potential corporate and personal liabilities. The Innovator of the Year award, that symbol of my betrayal, was now a stark, public testament to their hubris and the folly of underestimating true talent. As Ethelberg spiraled into an irreversible bankruptcy, I was already moving forward. My emotions weren't those of vindictive triumph, but rather a profound sense of quiet satisfaction and vindication. My focus was entirely on Zenith Solutions and the full, unbridled deployment of Project Chimera. Victoria Sterling, true to her word, had wasted no time. She immediately brought me on board, not just as a developer, but as the Executive Vice President of Advanced Analytics, a role with expansive authority and resources. My new office, overlooking the vibrant, dynamic skyline of Silverleaf City's Innovation District, felt vastly different from the sterile, oppressive confines of Ethelberg. Here, the air crackled with genuine innovation, mutual respect, and a shared vision. Under my leadership, Project Chimera was officially rebranded as Oracle Nexus Insight Pro. We launched it with a low-key, yet strategically impactful online presentation, emphasizing its ethical framework, its unparalleled AI-driven analytical capabilities, and its ironclad security. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. With Viridian Corp now desperately needing a new platform after severing ties with the disgraced Ethelberg, Oracle Nexus, Insight Pro filled the void seamlessly. Our system was not just a replacement, it was a quantum leap forward, offering predictive insights and data visualization that Viridian had only dreamed of. The success was immediate and overwhelming. Viridian Corp became our flagship client, publicly singing our praises and showcasing the transformative power of Oracle Nexus. Insight Pro. Other major corporations, eager to avoid Ethelberg's spectacular demise and impressed by Zenith Solutions' transparent and innovative approach, began flocking to us. Within 6 months, Oracle Nexus Insight Pro became the undisputed gold standard in data analytics, redefining what was possible across multiple industries. My name, Aurora Hayes, was no longer whispered in the context of corporate betrayal, but celebrated as a visionary, a testament to resilience, and a champion of genuine, protected innovation. I delivered keynote speeches at prestigious tech summits, published thought-provoking articles in leading journals, and was even approached by a major university about establishing a research fellowship in my name. My reputation had not just recovered, it had soared to unprecedented heights. Life settled into a new, fulfilling rhythm. I was working harder than ever, but it was my work, for a company that valued its people and their creations. Arthur Finch, once a cautious ally, eventually left the sinking ship of Ethelberg and, to my immense relief, joined my team at Zenith Solutions, bringing his invaluable expertise and unwavering loyalty. We built something truly special, a culture of collaboration and trust, the absolute antithesis of the toxic environment we had escaped. Then, one quiet afternoon, my burner phone, the one I had used for Omega Protocol, buzzed with an incoming call. It was an unrecognized number, but something about the cadence, the hesitant ring, told me who it was. I let it ring. A moment later, a voicemail chimed. It was Serafina Dubois. Her voice, once so poised and cutting, now sounded strained, tinged with desperation, and I imagined the bitter taste of regret. Aurora, it's Serafina. I was hoping we could talk. Privately. About everything. I need you to understand. I listened to the message, then deleted it without a second thought. There was nothing to understand, and nothing left to say. The past was behind me, the betrayal a distant echo. I had reclaimed my work, my reputation, and my future. And in doing so, I had proven that true innovation, when protected and nurtured, would always triumph over deceit and exploitation. The phoenix indeed had risen, leaving ashes in its wake. 11 Aurora's story teaches us a simple yet profound lesson. Always protect yourself and the fruits of your labor. In a competitive environment, talent can easily be exploited. Betrayal often comes from the most unexpected places. Don't trust blindly. Always have a backup plan, a trump card to save yourself. Because even when cornered, talent and resilience will always find a way to rise and shine brighter than ever before. If you found this story interesting, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more captivating videos. Thank you for listening. See you in the next video.